All right. So, welcome to our in-service session on progress monitoring outside of the FastBridge system. I'm Alina Wehoff, one of the instructional coaches, and joining me is Kevin White, one of our school psychologists. And we are going to just share a couple of tools with you and then have some optional time for discussion afterwards. So our description of this session: if you teach a content or grade level that does not have progress monitoring within the FastBridge system. In this session, we will explore different options and resources you can use to keep track of your progress monitoring data. I recognize many of you in the call, seeing a lot of secondary teachers, which makes a lot of sense. FastBridge, though it has some secondary resources, is a lot more heavily focused on the elementary grades. So when you get to that point where, hey, I need to progress monitor something that I can't seem to find an appropriate tool, how do I keep track of it? That's what we're going to be starting to dip our toes into a little bit. We try to kind of connect these. So if you're working on 5D plus rubric A5 or PCC3 for your teacher goals, this session supports both of those indicators. All right, so those of you guys who are at our October 7th in-service and attended one of the secondary sessions by school, one of the resources at that time, which oh, hold on, I didn't put the link in the chat. There you go. All right, links in the chat for the slides so that you guys can click on all the links and follow along. I did link right there the slides from that October in-service session. Those are the slides from the secondary groups that met in the morning that day by school. And there are a whole host of resources in there. One of them that I wanted to highlight at this point is that academic challenges planning sheet. Depending, I don't know exactly how it's handled at the different schools. I was with the Poultney High School group, and we did all make a copy of that and start filling it out for one of our students that we knew needed extra support. One of the really awesome things about this planning sheet is that it's very detailed, and it kind of walks you through that whole problem solving process of hey, here's something I'm noticing that the student is struggling with. What do I think is getting in the way? What's the problem? Let's keep digging deeper. Let's try and really figure out what it is that they need to work on to build up that skill, to fill that gap that's preventing them from accessing whatever grade level content and skills they need to. So I linked it right in there again, so you have it. The latter part of that, because it's a multi-page document, does have little sample data tables in there for you to record things like your intervention sessions and your progress monitoring data. So especially as this is a new process for many of us, using a full template like that for those first couple of rounds, definitely an awesome idea. As you get going with this though, having little packets, where you always have to just flip to the back, is not always the best tool for everybody. So another option is if you are somebody who, rather than keep either a physical copy of a whole packet or having to manage Google Docs while doing stuff with students, I know for myself, I always love to have a hard copy of things that I could keep in my daily binder that had the stuff that I needed for that day. So here, I'll just go back for a moment. The full academic challenges planning sheet, I know this is probably a little small, but as you go through, that whole first part is the problem solving part, and then it gets to the contact log where you're keeping track of the sessions of intervention that you're doing with the student. And then after that, there's the spot for data collection on their progress monitoring data. But again, this is a 5-page document and it can get kind of cumbersome. So for simplification, if you were to use this just to do the first few pages for all of the problem solving identification part, here I made a couple of different options that if you want to try them out could be a print and go type of situation for you, that are all set up as one pagers that you can just, when you print it as a double-sided, you'll get just one sheet of paper. So like I had printed some off for myself just to kind of give the idea. Where did I put it? Here it is. So I would be able to, let's say I was going to be progress monitoring just one student that I was looking at for their concerns. I could summarize on the front page. Here's the basic info of what I'm doing with this student. Here's a little data table to record my progress monitoring data. And then on the back is my little attendance contact log for their interventions. And this I would be able to just keep right handy in my binder of stuff that I'm using for the day, because that's how I organize myself. So for anybody that would potentially find that useful, I made kind of little easy to use pages for that. There's 3 different versions. The other versions have just extra columns. Sometimes you may have a small group that's working on the same skill. So maybe you've identified, hey, these 2 students are struggling with the same thing, and I'm going to be doing targeted intervention with them as a pair or as a trio, or it could be more. But I made a couple of others. So the difference there is that it just has, instead of one column for data points, it'll say data point with a blank to put in, student A, and another column to record the data for student B. Same thing for the attendance log on the back. Again, you do not have to use these. This is just if you're somebody who wants to be able to print and go and try something out, you can also copy it, edit it, do whatever you want with it, or don't use it all if you don't like it. If you're a little more into the tech realm of stuff and you want to do something with Google Sheets, or if you're on the newer side to Sheets, but you want to give it a go, I made an example sheet that has this same type of information and would collect the same kind of information. You could make I'll walk you guys through my little example one. You could make a copy of it and try it out for yourself if you wanted to. You can totally not use it or try something else. And then I did also link down here if you are interested in going a little more into Sheets, Google's own Google Sheets training stuff. And then last year, I did a presentation on the basics of making charts in Google Sheets for visualizing data. So I linked those slides in there as well as a resource. But if we go to my example, and here I'll zoom in a little. There's 3 tabs at the bottom here: the plan tab, the intervention contact log, and the progress monitoring. So the plan tab, again, has that basic summary info. The intervention contact log is basically already set up for you. So you would be able to, like right now, I just set it up for student A and student B. If you only had 1 student, you could delete a column. If you have 3 students or 4 students, you could copy a column for however many you need. And they're set up just as checkboxes. So let's say we were going to be progress monitoring today. You would, in the date box, be able to type in today's date. We did this intervention for 10 minutes. Student A was present, student B was present. Any notes that I wanted to put for myself about this session. So this is for anybody who wants to be able to track things digitally, something like this is a pretty basic but effective tool for capturing that. When it comes to the progress monitoring, I did put a little bit of sample data in here so you can see what it does. It's set up so that first row is where you would put in your baseline data point for the assessment. And again, here I put it in for 2 students, but you could just delete or add columns as needed if you have more or less students in the group. And for this example, I put in 4 points to their baseline and then 3 additional times that I've progress monitored them with the dates and the data points. And I set this up so that it's now automatically making a graph for me to show me those 2 students. So if I were to then say, like, okay, I had put in data points for today. If we were to jump ahead into the future, let's see, 2 weeks from now is the 16th. So let's say we're in the future and I've done another round of this progress monitoring assessment. I could type in the 16th, and then I can type in, so let's say student A, maybe they scored a 9 again, and student B now scored a 10. We can see over here, our graph, it just extended and added additional data points for us. So as we go, I purposely set this one up to be nice and user-friendly. I put plenty of rows. I gave 30 rows worth of space. Probably not going to need that many, but that way it has more than you need. So that's an option if you want to have something visual. If you only want to use this part, like let's say you're someone who's like, okay, I'm going to chart my stuff on here, but for visualizing, oh, I'm going to go use this because it's already set up. I can just type it in and it makes a graph for me. It's really nice to be able to visualize data. It's easier to see those patterns of things like when is the line going up versus down versus staying the same. So again, just another tool. You don't have to use this. These are just things we can start to try out and use to work on integrating, collecting, and recording progress intervention information and progress monitoring data as part of our regular practice. And I'm almost done talking. So this kind of gets at those important takeaways. Our big kind of key takeaway for today is, as you're doing interventions with students, record what strategy you're doing with them, when you're doing it. Are they there or not? Because you can set up the best laid plans, but if the student is absent for half of the sessions, that's a piece of information. So record that. You want to know how much they're actually there for. And then collect and record the appropriate data in terms of their progress monitoring. What specifically we use to progress monitor and record that's part of that kind of next steps discussion for anyone who's interested in that. But again, the important takeaway for right now is to start building this into our practice. So documenting how a student is doing and the specific steps you are taking as their teacher are kind of our essential, as teachers, habits of work to be a high functioning multi-tiered system of support. So this is something we want to start building into our regular practice, that, hey, this is a student that needs support on this specific skill. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to document it. Here are 3 different options of ways you can do it. If you have a different way that you want to document this that works for you, that's fine as well. We just wanted to provide some options and examples. So for anybody who that's enough and I want to go explore some of that, try some of that, set that up for one of my students that I am progress monitoring or am planning to progress monitor, that is great. You will be able to do that in a moment. If you're somebody who's like, okay, I'm good with the data collection part, how do I determine which skill they need to work on? How do I determine which strategy to use? How do I determine which progress monitoring assessment to use? If those are the questions that intrigue you more, feel free to stay on and we can start to unpack and discuss a couple of those. And then my last little plug before I send people off who want to go practice some of this is that I did link the digital sign-in and feedback form right on the last slide. So at some point before you sign off for the very end of the day today, please make sure you fill that out. It is also going to come to your email, but I just wanted to put it in another place for you. So with that, I will go ahead and stop the recording part of this so that we will have that for anybody who either wasn't here or wants to go back and watch it again. And then we can answer questions and then start the discussion. So let me turn off recording. Oh, hold on, I clicked the wrong button. I'll cut this part out.